Hello friends, and welcome to my TBR for middle grade March. The more I read middle grade books, the more I fall in love with them. They are some of my favorite books out there, and you really wouldn't expect it from, technically a children's book, but they can have such powerful stories and messages in them, and the writing is often phenomenal, and I've really loved them. The more I read them, the more I love them. So why not participate in a month that is focused on reading middle grade books? And it actually really works out because, since the start of this channel, my goal was to actually read the books that I own, and I have done so well. The original 20-something books that I started with, again, aside from the nonfiction books, I do have some of those left, but all of those I've read, and all the books that I bought last year, I have read all of those except for 3 of them, and those 3 books happen to be middle grade books. So by the end of March, I should be completely caught up with all of my reading, which means that when I finish these 3 books from last year, the books that I buy this year are going to be the ones I read this year, which is going to feel amazing. I'm not going to have this big, huge, long backlist of read books or books to read, which I am very excited about. Let's get started with this TBR. Since it's been a little while since I've looked at them, I'm probably just going to read you the synopsis from the book, just because it's really hard for me to summarize what a book is about until I've actually read it and I get a feel for it. There are 5 prompts to this readathon, but they say you don't actually have to use them. You can just read middle grade books, which is what we're doing. So I'm not going to worry about the prompts for this readathon because I don't have to. My top picks for this month are going to be, of course, those 3 oldest books that I have, but then I also have a newer middle grade read as well that I have bought this year, but that one won't be at my top priority. So the first one we have is The Hatmakers by Tamzin Merchant, and it says that in Cordelia's London, magic is real and woven into objects created by the 5 maker families: the Hatmakers, the Bootmakers, the Watchmakers, the Cloakmakers, and the Glovemakers. Growing up in her father Prospero's footsteps, 11-year-old Cordelia Hatmaker has learned the family's ancient skills and secrets so she can one day make her own enchanted hats. When Prospero and his ship are lost at sea during an important ingredient expedition, her grief-stricken aunt-uncle must turn their attention toward fulfilling a decree to create a peace hat for the king. But Cordelia refuses to accept that her father is gone for good and desperately begins making plans to find him. Then the peace hat is stolen, along with the peace boots, watch, cloak, and gloves, and Cordelia realizes there is more to a menacing plot against the Makers Guild, and that Prospero Hatmaker's disappearance may be connected. Cordelia must uncover the truth about who's behind the thefts if she is to save the Makers and find out what really happened to her father. So it's a nice magical adventure. Up next we have The Dollmaker of Krakow by Romero. In the land of dolls, there is magic. In the land of humans, there is war. Everywhere there is pain. But together, there is hope. Carolina is a living doll whose king and queen have been overthrown. But when a strange wind spirits her away from the land of the dolls, she finds herself in Krakow, Poland, in the company of a dollmaker, a man with an unusual power and a marked past. The dollmaker has learned to keep to himself, but Carolina's courageous and compassionate manner lead him to smile and even befriend a violin-playing father and his daughter. That is, once the dollmaker gets over the shock of realizing a doll is speaking to him. But their newfound happiness is dashed when Nazi soldiers descend upon Poland. Carolina and the dollmaker quickly realize that their Jewish friends are in grave danger, and they are determined to help save them no matter what the risks. So that sounds like it's going to be probably a bit of a tough one to read. I'm assuming it's not going to be completely horrific considering that it's meant for children, but you never know. And then we have Anne of Green Gables. So I, over the last probably year and a half or so, discovered the show Anne with an E on Netflix, and have since then watched it probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 times now, because I love it. I love it so much. And it made me realize that I've never actually read Anne of Green Gables, which is what the show is based on. So when I found this really, really pretty edition, which is actually a collection of the first 3 books in the series, I knew I had to have it because I wanted to see if I loved the book as much as the show. I do realize that the Netflix show is going to be, it's far more progressive than the book could ever hope to be given the time period in which it was written, but I still want to at least say that I've read it, even if I don't end up loving it. But I think we all kind of have a general idea of what Anne of Green Gables is about. We follow Anne Shirley, who is a young orphan girl, and she gets sent to the farm, Green Gables, with a brother and sister, Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert. And they kind of, you know, they all fall in love with each other and they become a family. And I believe the whole series just really chronicles Anne's life as she grows up and all the adventures and mishaps that she goes through, living in this small town on this beautiful, idyllic farm. So I'm excited to actually read that for once. Classics aren't usually my favorite thing, but maybe since it's a children's book, it'll be a little bit more my thing, you know? But this next book is one that I'm not going to put too much priority on because it is one that I've actually bought this year, so it's a newer book, but it's The Whispers by Greg Howard. 11-year-old Riley believes in the Whispers, magical wood creatures that will grant you wishes if you leave them tributes. Riley has a lot of wishes. He wishes bullies at school would stop picking on him. He wishes Dylan, his 8th grade crush, liked him, and Riley wishes he would stop wetting the bed. But most of all, Riley wishes for his mom to come back home. She disappeared a few months ago, and Riley is determined to find her. So he goes on a camping trip with his friend Gary to look for the Whispers and asks them to bring his mom back. But Riley doesn't realize the trip will shake the foundation of everything that he believes in forever. So that one sounds like it might be another tough one to read, but I like the middle grades because they can pack so much emotion in such a short read that it's usually why I really like them. And then there's also a group book for the month, and I don't know if I'm going to read this one or not, depends on if I can get it somewhere without buying it, but the group book is Pony by R.J. Palacio? I'm not sure how to say that. 12-year-old Silas is awoken in the dead of night by 3 menacing horsemen who take his father away. Silas is left shaken, scared, and alone, except for the presence of his companion, Mittenwool, who happens to be a ghost. When a pony shows up at his door, Silas makes the courageous decision to leave his home and embark on a perilous journey to find his father. Along the way, he will face his fears to unlock the secrets of his past and explore the unfathomable, you know what I mean, mysteries of the world around him. So it does sound really interesting. So those are the books I'm going to be reading specifically for middle grade March. But I do have another book on my TBR for this month, and it is a book club book. So I have joined the book club. I'm not sure what it's called. I don't know if it's called the Fanfiction Book Club or what the actual title is. But Paige from the PM Reader and Serena from Read the Riot have created a book club based on, I originally thought it was just a book club for fan fiction where they would pick fan fiction and read it. But then I discovered it was actually going to be about books that are some way loosely related to fan fiction, so maybe fan fiction tropes or fan fiction that was once fan fiction but then got turned into an actual book or things like that. So then I decided to join them because it's actual books. I can't say I've ever read fan fiction. I don't know if I would like it or not, but I've never read it. And so far this year, because it started in January and I've been reading along with it all year, and so far I have really, really enjoyed all the books that we've picked. And this month is one that I have been wanting to read for a really, really long time, so it just gives me an excuse to go ahead and buy it and read it. And March's book club book pick is The Song of Achilles by Madeline. I think we all kind of know it. This one's a pretty popular book. I think we all kind of know what it's about. But it's of course, a Greek myth retelling, and it follows Achilles, a different version of the Trojan War, and I guess what role he played in it. But I have been wanting to read that for a really long time. I absolutely loved Circe, as many people did as well, and I know even more people love this book more than they love Circe, so I'm very excited for it. I think that's about it. That's, how many books is that? 5, 6, which is far more than I typically read, but since they're mostly middle grade books, I should probably get through all, if not most of them. So if you are participating in middle grade March, I would love to know what you are reading, if you have any recommendations in general of middle grade books that you think I might want to check out, not necessarily just for this month, but in general, because again, I do love middle grade books more and more the more I read them. With that, I thank you so much for being here, and I hope that means I see you soon.